Hi, my name is Desmond. Today's video I want to talk about a common problem we all have when using camera flash. Now modern camera flashes are pretty advanced and they're pretty accurate, but the problem is they have to fire pre-flash before they take the picture. So what often happens is you get people blinking. Every time you take a picture, some people are so sensitive, each picture they're blinking in it. And you've got to resort to other methods so that they don't blink when you take a photo with flash. So my solution is aperture auto mode. Now if you've got an older Nikon flash, like an SB800, that's pretty simple. You turn on the flash, turn on the camera, you take it out of TTL mode, and you go to AA mode, which is actually aperture auto mode. And what the camera does is that it tells the flash what aperture and ISO it's at, and the flash has a little thyristor in the front here, which measures the light reflected back. So the flash fires, the light reflects back, and the thyristor tells it when to shut off. And it is so fast, thousandths of a second or faster, that you would not have the chance to blink. It's impossible to get someone blinking unless it's just coincidence. So that's all fine if you've got a Nikon camera, but if you have another camera, you can still use the Nikon SB800 in A mode. So it's not aperture auto anymore. The flash and the camera don't talk to each other, but you go to A mode and you manually set your aperture and your ISO, and you set that on your camera as well, and it's still going to use that thyristor to measure the flash and adjust the exposure. And that way you can use it on any camera as long as your camera is in manual mode, or at least aperture priority with the ISO set at whatever the flash is going to handle. And you can get pretty good results with it. There are other flashes that you can use. There's a Nikon SB28, an older flash, and you set your aperture and your ISO, and it's got the thyristor in the front, and off you go. And then there's these old flashes. I know I'm going to scare a few people if I suggest putting this on your digital, but what you do if you want to use a flash like this, you first make sure you turn it on, get your voltmeter, and you measure the pin at the center and the pin at the side. So if I put that on the center pin and on the side pin, 3.2 volts. There's also a website you can go on, botzilla.com. You look up Botzilla flash trigger voltages, and they've got a long list of camera flashes and the voltages that people have measured at the hot shoe. If you see an older flash with a thyristor on eBay or something like that and you want to buy it, you can go to that site and you can look up the flash trigger voltage and find out whether it's going to be safe for your camera or not. 6 volts and under is basically what most digital cameras today can handle. If you've got a Nikon, they are pretty powerful. Nikons can handle 250 volts at the hot shoe. I once had my D50 wired up to an ignition coil through my camera flash. I was trying to make a triggertron, a spark gap switch. I was trying to make something explode, as you do, and I wired it up in series with my camera flash to trigger the event. And as I took the picture, the ignition coil fired at 30,000 volts. It didn't jump the gap. It came back up through the camera body. I got zapped. The camera was still fine, still working with flash. I'm not suggesting you try putting 30,000 volts through your Nikon, but I'm just saying that they can handle really good voltages. And they're pretty strong and reliable. A lot of modern cameras can't handle it. So if you're scared, don't do it. Or you just get some flash triggers, put the flash trigger on top of your camera, plug this into the trigger, and all you can blow up is the flash trigger. There's a lot of cheap flash triggers out there you can experiment with. So what I did is I took the SB800 put on my Panasonic GH4 and I took a few test photos. I'll show you those photos now. The first photo is a test shot at f4, 1/60th of a second, ISO 400. It's pretty dark. So I set A mode on the Nikon flash, f4, ISO 400, and I took some pictures. You can see the very first picture came out really well exposed. Second picture just bounced flash straight into the corner there. Third picture looks pretty good. Fourth picture looks pretty good. It's fairly reliable, and it's going to get you results that you can easily edit if you're not happy with them. You will not have any blinking in your photographs. Then I took the Sunpack G4500, picked up this for $40, and it's a really strong, reliable flash. It takes 6 batteries in the top. This one is clean as anything. It looks like it's never been used when I bought it. Has these settings on the back. At the bottom we have the green setting, A mode, and we move it up, we got lime green, and then we've got red, and then we've got manual, which is just full power. Now, how some of these older ones worked, I'm not sure about this one, is that it's got one power setting, put on green mode, it measures through the thyristor, and it shuts down when it sees enough light. You put it in a higher power mode, and all it does is slides a little neutral density filter in front of that, so it has to fire stronger to shut down. You slide it up again, and darker neutral density filter goes in front of it, blocks more light, and it has to fire more powerful. But what we've got at the top, take it back to the green line, we've got this ISO and f-stop that you slide back and forth, and because I was using f4 here, I slide it across to f4, and at the top it says use ISO 400. So those are the settings it wanted. Now, the first picture I took with that looks pretty bright. I had the flash facing forward. Now that's when you look at the back here as well, and you see the green line, and you see that at that setting your minimum working distance is 2 meters and your maximum working distance is 22 meters. That means that the weakest the flash can fire, at those settings you need to be at least 2 meters away or it's going to be overexposed. So, obvious solution for better flash as well, bounce it off the roof, you're making it weaker, you're spreading it over a wider area, and you're increasing the distance to your subject from the flash. And then you take another shot and it looks a lot better. And then you try another 2 photos. You can see this flash is quite a bit more powerful than the SB800, and they turn out pretty good. So you might ask, well, what are you going to do when your ambient isn't so underexposed? Let's say you're outdoors using flash and your ambient is correctly exposed. Well, full flash, like with the Nikon SB800, you'll find that an older flash like this older Nikon, you go through, you've got TTL mode, and that's an old mode that disregards the ambient exposure. It believes it's the only light source, and it exposes to light the whole scene, and if your ambient is also correctly exposed, you get overexposure. Then they had TTL-BL, which is balanced full flash, which says, okay, let's calculate the ambient exposure and then just add as much flash as we need to complete the scene. That's TTL-BL. Modern Nikon flashes only say TTL on them because they are TTL-BL. That has become the standard. So what TTL-BL does is that it takes the ambient into account, then adds, if it's correctly exposed, it adds flash at about minus 1.7 of a stop, just to give you full flash and highlight the subject. So you can do something very similar with this. What you do, if you've got your camera set at f4, if I've got this set at f4, ISO 400, what I can do is go to my camera, set at f5.6. I'm telling this flash I'm at f4, I'm not at f5.6, it's going to be one stop darker. So this is going to fire as it would for f4, but I've got set it stop darker, and the flash is obviously going to be a stop darker. Or we go to, let's say, f8 or something like that, and we've got 2 stops darker for exposure for the flash. So there are ways to work around it if you understand your aperture and ISO settings. But otherwise, for general use, you just set them at the same settings. If you're indoors, you're not going to get people blinking. Outdoors and brighter light, there's less chance of people blinking with a pre-flash, but it can happen. So hopefully you've learned something, a tip on how to get automatic flash without people blinking, and I'll see you next time.